Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Troy with Cichlid Bros. In today's video, we are doing a full care guide and species profile on the Texas Cichlid. This is one of the most requested topics that we get on the channel, so we're finally going to walk through a care guide on the Texas Cichlid. Let's dive right in. When it comes to the Texas Cichlid, there is a lot of confusion in the hobby because there's actually two species that are separate that are both called Texas Cichlids. Using the term Texas Cichlid is a common name given to two different species, the first being the herichthys cyanoguttatus. This one is also referred to as a green Texas Cichlid, and like I said, because of these common names, it gets really muddy really quick, because the other species is the herichthys carpintis, and they are very similar behaviors and appearance. The main thing that is different is just the coloration throughout the body. Sometimes the carpintis will be a little more blue. They are also called the blue Texas Cichlid sometimes, and there are also electric blue Texas Cichlids, and they just have very strong bright blue colors, whereas some would call the other species, the true Texas Cichlid, has a little more white and gray coloration, maybe even hints of blue and green, but the carpintis is going to be much more blue, and the eye color might be a little darker as well. This is an example of a beautiful carpintis cichlid from Mike at Cichlids. Mike and Will are friends of the channel and they both have Texas Cichlids, so you'll see some footage of them in this video. Also, I'd recommend going over there and subscribing to their channel as well. They're great guys. The true Texas or the green Texas Cichlid can be found generally in the southern region of Texas, whereas the carpintis is usually found in the northern regions of Mexico, which borders Texas. And sometimes those environments and habitats are close by, and there is inbreeding and hybridization naturally in the wild, but definitely in the hobby as well. Most local fish stores will label it as a Texas Cichlid, even if it is a carpintis. It can be confusing to tell between the two until they start maturing and you see some of that difference in color pattern. But luckily, because both species are so similar, the care requirements and the general guide to keeping them is almost exactly the same throughout this video, so this is the spot for you. And lastly, before we get into the care requirements, there is also a variant called the red Texas, which is crossbreeding a Texas Cichlid with a blood parrot cichlid or a red mammon, and those have increased in popularity in the hobby recently because they are pretty beautiful fish. However, if you're not a fan of that hybridization and you want to go with the more standard carpintis or green Texas Cichlid, that may be a better option for you. But just for the simplicity and clarity of this video, when I refer to either of these species, I will just call them Texas Cichlids unless there is a distinction that I need to call out. But keeping Texas Cichlids is pretty straightforward as long as you get some of the basic things right. First of all, the Texas Cichlid does get fairly large. The true Texas Cichlid might get up to 12 inches for a male and about 8 to 9 inches for a female. The male will get a pretty good sized nuchal hump, and they just look incredible as they mature. The carpintis might be a couple inches smaller in overall size, but because they are such big fish and they have a lot of aggressive tendencies, you do need a large tank to keep them. I would recommend a 75-gallon tank as a bare minimum for one adult, but if you're going to keep them with tank mates or a breeding pair, you may want to consider a bigger tank, maybe a 125 or larger. It is common for hobbyists to either keep a pair or just a really cool show quality male and have them be at pet fish or wet pet in your aquarium. And when you get that adult that has those amazing colors, it could be worth it just to keep one solo. And like I said, they are known to be pretty aggressive cichlids, so you definitely want a big enough tank so you have plenty of territory for them to claim. And if you're keeping them with other tank mates, have plenty of hiding spots in the aquarium, plenty of driftwood, rocks. You can maybe put some fake plants because they might tear up live plants. And I would usually go with sand, but you could also definitely do gravel with the Texas Cichlid. And Texas Cichlids are pretty hardy fish, so even if you're a beginner making some mistakes, you could probably get away with some of those with the Texas Cichlid because they're pretty strong, durable fish, and they're widely adaptable to most water parameters out there. I would just recommend keeping things consistent with your own water rather than chasing numbers, but their ideal water parameters probably around 76 degrees to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, keeping nitrates below 40 parts per million, which means doing regular water changes if you don't have enough live plants in the tank to reduce those nitrates. I would recommend good flow in the tank, so strong filters and maybe a wave maker pointed towards the top for surface agitation, and pH of 6.0 to 8.0 and any hardness levels really will be just fine for the Texas Cichlid. Like I said, they're very hardy and adaptable, so maybe don't try and chase parameters, just keep things consistent and those nitrates low. When it comes to keeping tank mates with the Texas Cichlid, there are many other cichlids that I would recommend. Basically, any of the Central American cichlids you'll see in this tank, which is primarily Vieja cichlids, Jack Dempseys, fire mouse, convicts, anything that's kind of mid to larger size Central or South American cichlids can probably go with the Texas. Some South American cichlids would probably work, like the Green Terror, the Oscar, Severums, Electric Blue Acara, Geophagus even, and you'll see this Texas Cichlid here is pretty large and kind of the tank boss of this 180-gallon aquarium, and it's done really well with all these other cichlids in Billy Donovan's 180-gallon aquarium. The biggest thing to get right is just having a big enough aquarium so that you could have tank mates with the Texas Cichlid, and some of that aggression can be minimized. There are definitely some non-cichlid tank mate options as well. I would recommend things like ballast sharks, tinfoil barbs, maybe some denizen barbs, or just some really large tetras, but anything that's medium to small size for tetras or barbs could be at risk of being eaten or killed by the Texas Cichlid, so just be careful with that. Anything that could fit in the Texas Cichlid's mouth, it likely will, so just avoid any tank mates that are too small. Also, most of your catfish or bottom dwellers like clown loaches and plecos would definitely work with the Texas. When it comes to feeding the Texas Cichlid, it is really straightforward. I just use some big fella pellets from Extreme or monster size pellets from Extreme. You can mix in some big flake foods like krill flakes or spirulina flakes, and I like to mix in some frozen foods like brine shrimp and bloodworms once every week or two to give them a well-rounded diet. And if you are giving them this quality food, I found that they grow really fast. This is an example right here where about 3 years ago was only a couple inches, which is roughly the size you'll see in most fish stores. And about 6 months after that, it already doubled in size. And today it's an absolute beast, and like I said, the tank boss of this 180-gallon aquarium. And when it comes to breeding Texas cichlids, it is one of the easiest fish to breed in the hobby. That is why they are so common and why there's so much hybridization out there. When you have a Texas cichlid in the tank, they are always trying to breed, even if it's with a cichlid that is not their species. All you need is a sexually mature male and female, and they will lay hundreds of eggs, and the male will fertilize those eggs, and you'll have so many Texas cichlids on your hands you won't even know what to do. So you want to keep that in mind, that the market's already kind of saturated for Texas cichlids if you're trying to breed them. So you may only want to get a male or a female, just keeping them separate, maybe keeping them with other tank mates that they may not breed with. Some people will put terracotta pots in their aquarium, which is where the Texas cichlids will lay their eggs. Basically any flat surface, they will lay the eggs, and they are great parents. They will be super aggressive if they're in breeding mode. If there's eggs or fry in the tank, the other tank mates would definitely be in harm's way. And if they are breeding, they'll definitely get into a breeding dress, meaning they'll change colors. The female will get a darker splotchy coloration, especially on their midsection and bottom of their body. And it is really interesting to see them change those colors when they are in breeding mode. But in summary, keeping the Texas cichlid is pretty straightforward and relatively easy as long as you have a big enough aquarium with hiding spots and you choose appropriate tank mates. Even though they are known to be pretty aggressive fish, if you have these basic care requirements under wraps, they should be just fine even with other tank mates. Hopefully that information was helpful, but if you have any other questions about keeping the Texas cichlid, definitely leave those down in the comments section. Always happy to help. Thanks again for watching.